classes, the pressure. You'll be okay. You're the best.
Eight here, give it to me. Oh. This one.
That Maggie here.
What?
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namaste Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of God, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye.
Before reciting
Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Son of God, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srimad Nashta Praeshu Bhakteshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise through transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the light of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Can we put it in advance view, Prabhu? There's only like a few purports and they're very small. So we'll read through all of them. Prabhu.
So we are reading from chapter 3, marriage of son Sukanya and Chavanya. Yes.
Text 1, translation. Sri Shukdev Goswami continued. O king, Sarathi, other son of Manu, was ruler completely aware of Vedic knowledge. He gave instruction about the function of second day of Yajna to be performed by the descendants of Angira.
Shrati had a beautiful lotus-eyed daughter named Sukanya, with whom he went to the forest to see the ashrama of Shravana Muni.
While that Sukanya, surrounded by her friends, was collecting various types of fruits from trees in the forest, she saw within the hole of an Atuan two things glowing like luminaries.
As if induced by providence, the girl ignorantly pierced those two glowworms with the thorn, and when they were pierced, blood began to ooze out of them.
Thereupon, all the soldiers of Sharyati were immediately obstructed from passing urine and stool. Upon perceiving this, Sharyati spoke to his associates in surprise.
How strange it is that one of us has attempted to do something wrong to Shravana Muni, the son of Brigu. It certainly appears that someone among us has polluted this ashram.
Being very much afraid because Shukanya said to her father, I have done something wrong, for I have ignorantly pierced these two luminous substances which are.
After hearing this statement by his daughter, King Sharati was very much afraid. In various ways, he tried to appease Chavana Muni, for it was he who sat within the hole of the earthworm.
Oh, okay. King Sharyati, being very contemplative and thus understanding Chavanamuni's purpose, gave his daughter in charity to the sage. Thus, released from danger, with great difficulty he took permission from Chavanamuni and returned home.
Read the purport also.
The king, after hearing the statement of his daughter, suddenly told the great sage Chavanamuni everything about how his daughter had ignorantly committed such an offense. The Muni, however, inquired from the king whether the daughter was married. In this way, the king, understanding the purpose of the great sage Chavanamuni, Tad Avi Prayam Anaya, immediately gave the Muni his daughter in charity and escaped the danger of being cursed. Thus, with the permission of the great sage, king returned home.
Chavana Muni was very irritable, but since Chaitanya had gotten him as her husband, she dealt with him carefully, according to his way. Knowing his mind, she performed service to him without being bewildered.
Keep reading the purport also.
This is an indication of relationship between husband and wife. A great personality like Chavana Muni has the temperament of always wanting to be in a superior position. Such a person cannot submit to anyone. Therefore, Chavana Muni had an irritable temperament. His wife Shukanya could understand his attitude and under the circumstances, she treated him accordingly. If any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. This is victory for a woman. Even in the teachings of Lord Krishna with his different queens, it has been said that although the queens were the daughters of great kings, they placed themselves before Lord Krishna as his maidservants. However great a woman may be, she must place herself before her husband in this way. That is to say, she must be ready to carry out her husband's order and please him in all circumstances. Then her life will be successful. When the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, their life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. In the modern day, the wife is never submissive, and therefore home life is broken even by slight instances. Either the wife or the husband may take advantage of the divorce laws. According to the Vedic law, however, there is no such thing as divorce laws, and a woman must be trained to be submissive to the will of her husband. Westerners contend that this is a slave mentality for the wife, but factually it is not. It is a tactic by which a woman can conquer the heart of her husband. However irritable or cruel he may be, in this case we clearly see that although Shavana Muni was not young but indeed old enough to Shukanya's grandfather and was also very irritable. Shukanya, the beautiful young daughter of a king, submitted herself to her old husband and tried to please him in all respects. Thus she was a faithful and trust wife.
Therefore, some time passed, the Ashwini Kumar brothers, the heavenly physicians, happened to Shavana Muni's ashram. After offering them respectful obeisances, Shavana Muni requested them to give him youthful life, for they were able to do so.
This purport we'll come back to it because this is the verse we're focusing on. So we'll move on with the next verse.
Shavanya Muni said, although you are ineligible to drink Soma Rasa and sacrifices, I promise to give you a full pot of it. Kindly arrange beauty and youth for me because they are attracted to young women.
The great physicians, the Ashwini Kumar, very gladly accepted Chavanya Muni's proposal. Thus, they told the Brahman, just dive into this lake of successful life. One who bathes in this lake has his desire fulfilled.
After saying this, the Ashwini Kumaras caught hold of Shavana Muni, who was an old, diseased invalid with loose skin, white hair, and veins visible all over his body, and all three of them entered the lake. Shavana Muni was so old that he could not enter the lake alone. Thus, the Ashwini Kumaras caught hold of his body, and the three of them entered the lake.
Thereafter, three men with very beautiful bodily feature emerged from the lake. They were nicely dressed and decorated with earrings and garlands of lotuses. All of them were the same standard of beauty.
The chaste and very beautiful Sukanya could not distinguish her husband from the two Ashwini Kumars, for they were equally beautiful. Not understanding who her real husband was, she took shelter of the Ashwini Kumars. Sukanya could have selected any one of them as her husband, for one could not distinguish among them. But because she was chaste, she took shelter of the Ashwini Kumars so they could inform her who her actual husband was. Accept any man other than her husband, even if there be someone equally as handsome and qualified.
The Ashwini Kumaras were very pleased to see Sukanya's chastity and faithfulness. Thus they showed her Shavana Muni, her husband, and after taking permission from him, they returned to the heavenly planets in their plane.
Yes. So this part of this section of this chapter deals with Sukanya, Sharyati's daughter. And so since we're talking about Manu since Canto 8, it's like a lot of information. So I understand if you're falling asleep like Prabhu. But okay, so this story is very short and has a lot of things that are like, why is it like this? Might be a little bit hurtful to the women, understanding that, oh, we always have to submit, even if our husband is like 80 years old, 90 years old, and we have to please him and not expect anything in return. But we'll look at everything one by one. And I'm not a relationship expert, so please forgive me. And since we're also like in a brahmacharya ashram for now, we'll also look at that aspect of what this story is trying to say. So it starts with Sharyati and how he had a daughter named Sukanya. And she, with her friends, were collecting various types of fruits from the forest. And then she looks into a hole of an earthworm and then sees two glowing worm kind of thingies. And she is probably thinks that it's just glowing fruits, right? So she pierces those two worm-like things, and turns out that those were the eyes of Chavana Muni, who was sat in meditation and performing austerity and penances, right? And after, like, the main issue with Chavana Muni was not that his eyes were pierced, but that his dhyana was disturbed. And for that, he cursed all of the king's people, all of them, like his army and all of them, all that tend to the king. He cursed all of them that they will be unable to pass urine and they participated. Okay. So if, God forbid, if you've ever had to suffer through such thing like constipation, you would know that it's very difficult, very painful, and you cannot. It is a bodily thing, Prabhu. We should not laugh. Okay. 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 Like if you've ever had to experience it, it's understandable that doing everything with your tummy hurting and it's very difficult. You can't really do your duties very nicely with that. So all of the king's men were unable to serve him very nicely because of their bodily situation. And then the words started to roam around that, oh, someone must have offended the Muni. And then although very scared, Sukanya, she was very honest. And she decided to reach out to her father, right? Now here's Sukanya. No one would have known. She could have just kept quiet, but she chose to be truthful. And that's a quality of a Vaishnava, to always be truthful. While it might be very difficult in this situation, we heard that the king, after hearing, was very afraid. And when we do something that puts someone else in like a difficult position, they react not very nicely to it. And so she could have kept quiet and everything could have been nice with her, but then she, truthfully, although it was a bit of a difficult thing to do, because in this sense, it put her at a position of discomfort. She was married to an old man. So, yeah, after the king heard from his daughter that this has happened, he also decided that it was the best to surrender to the Muni, whom they had offended unknowingly. And after they talked to the Muni asked for the king's daughter in return, right? And now here, had a good point, but then I'm forgetting right now. We'll come back to it. After Sukanya got Chavana Muni as husband, she, like, imagine her being married to an old Muni, right? And with a young girl, she dreams of a good husband, a good looking husband, a very talented husband. And that's like totally normal, right? But in her case, she got an old Muni, although very respectable, but but she also chose to be a very chaste and faithful wife, serve her husband in every way that she can. Now, great munis are like known to be, very hot-headed, and they have like a temperament, as you were reading from the purports. Like who's the other muni or sage personality that you can remember that has like a temperament? Yeah, the Rasa Muni. So these sages, if you read pastimes about him, you will understand that it's very difficult to please these. It was very difficult to please him in all the circumstances and all the situations, and they're known to curse people left and right. But here, like in the last chapter, we read about whom?
Last chapter.
Yes, about the cow, the tiger. Who was the person? Sudyumna.
Sudyumna.
That was different. Let's go back. Actually, it was in the first chapter, not even the second chapter. The second chapter is just about.
Yeah, I was just cow. Yeah.
Okay.
Prashadra.
Prashadra. So Prashadra, we read his story, right? That he was ordered by his spiritual master to tend to the cows and protect them. And one night, a tiger came, and he was unable to distinguish between the tiger and the cow, and he ended up killing the cow, which is a great offense, right? And so when I was reading this pastime, I was like, so tigers were that big? And these are some mysteries that just revolve around Srimad Bhagavatam that intrigue me very much, because as we learn also in like the modern day history and archaeology, we read that the sizes of humans have changed and nothing's like it used to be. So it's just very intriguing. Anyways, here Prashadra, he was just trying to do his duty, right? It wasn't his fault that the sunlight, the moonlight wasn't very nice, and that he didn't live in the modern day and age where they had light bulbs. It wasn't his fault, right? He ended up mistaking the cow for the tiger and ended up killing the cow. But what happened after? He renounced all his duties and he went to the forest. And in the forest, when he was going from here and there, he gave up all the material sense enjoyment and everything, all the material duties and all the enjoyment around him. And he would act like he was deaf, blind, and couldn't think of anything, right? He would act like that. And by doing that, he just roamed around, fully absorbed in devotional service. And when he saw the forest fire, he entered the forest fire and gave up his life. right? And we were talking about it, that after that, he went back to Godhead. And while it seemed like he was put in an uncomfortable position, like, that things were unfair for him, but that adversity ended up being a blessing, that he was able to go back in that same lifetime to back to Godhead. And here in this chapter, we see that the king, Sh- 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 the king Shariati, the king Shariati here also, he's said to be very learned, right? And he was doing everything right, but something that wasn't even under his control happened, that he and his men had to suffer for, right? His daughter did her own thing, but he was put in an uncomfortable position. So this is an example that even though we think that, oh, I've been doing everything right and this situation was totally not under my control, why am I having to suffer? And why am I having to bear fruits for someone else's actions? Right? We think that, oh, this is very unfair. I must fight for my rights. But then instead of fighting, Shariati, he decided that it was best to take shelter. And in Partha Prabhu's class, from one of the classes that I remember, he said that whatever that comes our way, if we accept it with folded hands, we will realize in time that whatever came our way was Krishna's blessing. And here King Shariati is exhibiting that surrender to the Lord by thinking of the adversity and as an opportunity to just surrender and try to fix the things. When things happen that are unfair to us, we try, like, the first thing that comes to our mind is to retaliate, right? To prove our point, to let everyone know that, oh, just making sure everyone knows this thing happened, I had no part in it, this person was responsible and I was framed. So I am innocent. That's what we think to do, and that's what happens in a lot of cases. But when we stop acting on that urge to, like in the seminar, right? We were learning that being right is a losing strategy in any kind of relationships. So that was something that I was reminded of while reading this particular pastime also. So what happens is here, Sukanya marries Chavana Muni and she pleases him. And he's known to have a temperament, as we were talking about. And so she learns about all of his moods and tends to him as such, And Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada says that modern days wives, she doesn't want to submit. And so now, although I'm not saying that we should, like, I personally don't have a very firm stance on this because I don't have full knowledge as of now. But then here also in the purports it's written that it's important for the wife to submit and to her husband and tend to him according to his needs, because that's the way that they can please him. Now Chavana Muni, although he had like this temperament, what did he ask from the Ashwini Kumaras?
Beauty.
Youth and beauty, right? Why? He was old and he had been performing penances and austerities, and he was serving the Lord, and he was sure to go back, right? Why did he ask for youth and beauty? Can anyone try to guess?
Please his wife because she did so much for him. So
Yeah. Yes, to please his wife, because she did so much for him. And this, in the purport, it's written that it's the easiest way to please the husband and to win their heart is by serving them. And by doing that, you can very smartly get them to do what you want. Because and yeah, so in the end, this is what happened. Chavana Muni asked for youth and beauty from Ashwini Kumaras, and he was told that he couldn't even help himself to the lake or pond. But yeah, and he did all of that for his wife. Okay, now on to the notes that I made. Oh, actually, you have to read the verse. Please forgive me. We'll go to 9 3 11. Okay. कस्यचित्त्वतकालस्य नास्यत्यवाश्रमागतौ तौ पूजयित्वा प्रोवाच वयो मे दत्तमीश्वरो कस्यचित्त्वतकालस्य नासत्यावाश्रमागतौ तौ पूजयित्वा प्रोवाच
Vayu me dattam ishvara.
वयो मे दत्तमीश्वरो
कस्यचित्त्वत्कालस्य
कस्यचित्त्वतकालस्य नासत्यावाश्रमागतौ तौ पूजयित्वा प्रोवाच वयो मे दत्तमीश्वरो कस्यचित्त्वतकालस्य नासत्यावाश्रमागतौ तौ पूजयित्वा प्रोवाच
Vayu me datamishra.
वयो मे दत्तमीश्वरो कस्यचित्त्वतकालस्य नासत्यावाश्रमागतौ तौ पूजयित्वा प्रोवाच वयो मे दत्तमीश्वरो. We'll read synonyms all together. Kasyachit, after some time. Tu, but, atha, in this way. Kalasya, time having passed. Nasatya, to Ashwini Kumars. Ashrama, that place of Javanamuni. Agato, reached, thou, unto those two. Pujayitva, offering respectful obeisances. Prabhupada said, Vaya, youth, me, Ani, Ratam, please give, Ishvara, because you are able to do so. Translation will read all together. Thereafter, some time having passed, the Ashwini Kumara brothers, the heavenly planets, to ashrama. After offering them respectful obeisances, Shavana Muni requested them to give him youthful life, for they were able to do so. Who would like to read the purport?
The heavenly physicians, like the Ashwini Kumaras, could give youthful life even to one who was advanced in age. Indeed, great yogis, with their mystic powers, can even bring a dead body back to life if the structure of the body is important. We have already discussed this in connection with Bali Maharaj's soldiers and their treatment by Shukracharya. Modern medical science has not yet discovered how to bring a dead body back to life or bring youthful energy to an old body. But from these verses, we can understand that such a treatment is possible if one is able to take knowledge from the Vedic information. The Ashwini Kumaras were expert in Ayurveda, as was Dhanvantri. In every department of material science, there is a perfection to be achieved, and to achieve it, one must consult the Vedic literature. The highest perfection is to become a devotee of the Lord. To attain this perfection, one must consult Srimad Bhagavatam, which is understood to be the ripe fruit of the Vedic desire tree. Nigama kalpataru kalitam phalam.
Haribol. Yes. Now, when I was reading this particular pastime, I was wondering that of all stories that could be told, why do you think this one in particular is preserved in Srimad Bhagavatam? That a whole 17 verses are dedicated to this story? Anyone? Why is it so important that it's in Srimad Bhagavatam?
Medical treatment?
Medical treatment? Sure. I mean, if we find the lake, Prabhu, please tag the location. Yes, Prabhu.
She said the Shastra, how it's saying how the wife should obey the husband. And when she gets something, because a lot of women will get offended if we hear this, is how her husband actually did something for her as well. Some individuals do take advantage, but her husband actually changed himself, please his wife. So it kind of allows us this day and age to understand why they're saying that. Because sometimes people, they go against certain things because it goes against their feminist views. So I don't know, I just thought in this day and age.
That's right.
Many of us.
Yeah, as we talked about in the seminar, I realized that feminism sometimes can be kind of dangerous to ourselves, you know? It's like, and Prabhu was also saying that when the wife is not pleased, the husbands, they see themselves as failures. That, oh, I failed to provide for my wife, and she's displeased, so I don't know what I need to do to please her. And so the key philosophical points that I got from this section, it's according to my understanding, so please feel free to add to it. The first is that, as Prabhu was mentioning, the Vedas address every dimensions of the life, you know, like be it brahmacharya ashram, grahastha ashram, be it talking about as soon as you mentioned brahmacharya, Prabhu's interest is piqued. So all the dimensions of life that you could be in, Srimad Bhagavatam addresses it all. And so, you know, one of the things that we all suffer with is being able to relate to people, feeling like we have a place, that we're understood, right? And in this morning, especially like I myself, I was suffering with, you know, by myself thinking that, oh, I don't think this is my place, I don't belong with them, I don't know where I belong, and I can't relate to any of them. But as long as you turn to Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll find home in a way that there'll be something for you and something that you personally yourself would benefit from. So as long as we keep turning to Srimad Bhagavatam, everything will be taken care of, right? In a way that it addresses everything, all the problems that you can think, you know, it's like Reddit. You know, all the weird questions you have, like you search and some person like 14 years ago thought of the same thing and it was answered by another person, right, on Reddit. And Srimad Bhagavatam is like that, you know? You think that I am so different that no one can relate to me in this year 2025, but like millions and billions years ago, when Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes happened, when it was spoken, you can find it there, you know? So it is very much relatable, and it's very much applicable, and it's very much for you, right? So always turn to Srimad Bhagavatam. That's one of the points. And I would personally read books that I could relate to try and find a short-term escape. You know, that books, you get immersed in them. And it's very easy to lose yourself and lose the track of time. And it is like, instead of immersing ourselves in some kind of mundane books, which don't really give us anything of value, it's better to immerse ourselves in the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Because they're all Krishna Katha. And Vedic literature is not about escapism, right? By reading Srimad Bhagavatam, by immersing yourself, it's not that I'm ignoring reality like I was when I was reading some mundane books. I'm not sure how many of us can relate to this, but for me, it was a form of escapism. Yes. And Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not about escapism. It's about transforming everything, including relationships, struggles, and duties into spiritual practices, right? And So yeah, that's the first one, that Vedas, they address every dimension of our life. And then the second is how selfless service attracts divine reciprocation, right? And like sometimes, we all understand this fact that as Vaishnavas, we live to serve each other. But sometimes, especially if we're living all together and we get to know the person kind of personally, we're like, I don't know if they're deserving of my service. And that's a very crazy thing to think about. And we might not exactly think about it, but sometimes our actions kind of reflect that, knowingly, unknowingly. And the result, though, is we end up offending them in our minds, and we still have to uh, get the reaction for it. Why? Because when Sukanya was poking the glowing fruits, she didn't know that it was a Muni's eyes, right? So she also unknowingly, ignorantly made that mistakes, but she or her loved one had to suffer for it. And so this story is, and after all of that, she just surrendered and she tried her best to please her husband. And so this is a story of how selfless service attracts divine reciprocation, right? And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly, right? So Kanya didn't serve Chavana with expectations because he was an old Muni. What could he provide her? I mean, a lot, like knowledge and stuff, but it's like he was an old Muni and she wasn't serving him with any expectations. She was doing it out of duty, right? And this is an example of how even when it's not the best, or like we feel a bit uncomfortable doing our duties sometimes, we still must perform them, right? This is an example of how when you put yourself through something you don't really like or feel uncomfortable doing for someone else as a service, you are rewarded abundantly. And so this is also an example of how that is true. Yes. So she didn't serve Chavana with expectations, but her bhava, her mood, attracted the Ashwini Kumaras, right? And led her husband to be transformed, right? Prabhupada in the purport emphasizes that the husband voluntarily pleases the wife, and that is not material romance. It's reciprocation in dharma, right? If someone, for example, does a lot of service for this one person, and that person might not really like this person that's doing the service for them, but through time, their heart will melt. So service can melt even stone-hearted people. That, pardon? Metal-hearted.
Or hard-hearted.
Hard-hearted, stone-hearted people. So that's why it is advised that if you, and under unfortunate circumstances, end up offending a devotee, doing something that's not very pleasing to them, what do? You serve them. Whether they like it or not, you serve them. And you do it so sincerely that they forgive you, right? Yes, Prabhu.
One of the example of selfless service and getting a very huge something back in return is Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj and Gaur Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, because he didn't let him serve. Gaur Krishnadas Maharaj didn't let Bhakti Siddhanta, but because he was just very persistent, then Gaur Krishnadas Babaji was wondering, like, who is this person doing service for me? And he was pleased and then offered him initiation.
Yes.
And he only ever had, I think, one disciple, which was Bhakti Siddhanta.
Yes, Prabhu, it's not very nice of you to sneak in my room and read my script,
Oh,
but
sorry.
we forgive you. So thank you, Prabhu, for mentioning that. That's really important. I was also going to mention it that this, like, doing service for someone is like, you're doing that for me? Like, that's very nice of you. And like, for example, if Monal Prabhu is angry with me about something or something, I, for one, I would think, like, whatever, he can be angry with me. He's my brother. Where's he gonna go? He has to forgive me someday. But then that might take time, or like, but to show that I really care about my brother, how would I express that? I would do something for him, like make doodles, which might not carry a lot of value, but it carries sentimental value to show that, oh, I thought of you and I made something for you. Here it is. Please forgive me. Or like, it's like, a cat catching bugs and quietly leaving it at your doorstep because they thought of you and they wanted to do something for you. So the cat did something in its capacity to try and please you. And so you don't have to do anything extravagant, just small services, medium services, whatever you can think of to make that person's day better. You can serve them in that way. And that selfless service will attract Krishna's mercy. Because Krishna loves it when you serve any of his sons and daughters, right? So that was the second point that I could get out of the story. And the third one is that it's very important. We keep reading about this, that spiritual advancement comes through difficult situations. I think we were talking about this in one of the Divine Dialogues or the Srimad Bhagavatam classes, I'm not sure, but we were talking about adversity. I think Vachas Prabhu talked about this in his Divine Dialogues, that adversity, although it just, on the face of it, it looks like, oh, this is a difficult situation, I don't know how to get past this. Like for me, when I was in first year, when I came to Canada, I was in great adversity because I was not doing so well with my courses. I was also struggling to manage the financial aspect of life. And I was also dealing with being away from my family for the first time in forever. Forever is 17 years, but so it was just adversity, I was going through it. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. I didn't know about Srimad Bhagavatam, didn't know about the devotees, didn't know about this temple that it existed. And I was just going through it. I was like in a very bad shape. And then through that adversity, Monal Prabhu, he dragged me to the temple. I remember how much I used to, hate like travel, not visiting the temple, but traveling for 2 hours in the bus, in the subway, and again a bus, and then walking and whatnot. It was like literally crossing the 7 seas to come to this temple. It's very difficult, especially when you don't really know the the importance, or like when you don't really understand anything about spirituality, about Krishna. You think that, oh, I have to put great effort in this thing, and I don't even know if it's going to bear any fruits. I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of this spiritual practice at all. But then through that adversity, I came to the Bhakti Academy, and now I'm here. And I would say I'm doing good. Yeah. So through spiritual advancement comes through difficult situations. Can we think of any other examples where a devotee or a person was put to a difficult situation, right? Where they had two choices. One, to be morose and to be like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And the other was to surrender and turn to Krishna. Yes. Draupadi? Yes. How? Just briefly.
So she had to go through a lot throughout her life. She was disrobed in an assembly of her family, supposed family members, and she had to. All her sons were killed, and in that moment, and she was distributed between 5 brothers. So in that moment, she could have been like, "Oh, why is this happening to me? My life is just so bad."
But because she understood that everything happens for a reason, she surrendered to Krishna.
Hmm.
And then things worked out in her favor.
Yes.
And plus, Krishna was always present in her life. That was the best.
Yes.
You were talking
She
about-
also prays for. No, that's Queen Kunti. But yes.
You were also talking about that advancement happens through adversity. So her advancement was that Krishna never left her side
Hmm.
throughout her whole life.
Yes.
Gajendra. Like he fought for like thousands of years,
Hmm.
and finally he surrendered to Lord
Hmm.
King.
Krishna always comes. You just have to call him, you know? Yes. Arjuna. Yes.
He was put into difficulty to fight his relatives, grandfather, teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But then, because he took shelter of Krishna, he advanced in spiritual life and was able to win the war.
And adversities, they're.
Prabha.
Oh, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu. Yes. Very well. Adversities, my point is that adversities, it's impossible to evade, you know, a situation like that. Like, adversities will come and you cannot escape them. Since we're running out of time, I'll make this short point because after that, we'll have 2 minutes for discussion. I'm sorry. I should have managed it better, but then, okay. So, adversities, you cannot escape them, they're inevitable. And, you know, every movie that you guys must have seen, there's some kind of adversity, you know, that the hero is put in. But after that, he, you know, shines through all of them, like passes with flying colors, and, you know, his name and fame is spread all over the world or universe. And so there is no good story without adversities. But adversities, they lead to, in this case, in Srimad Bhagavatam, eternal fame and glory, right? So, yeah, as I said, adversities, don't try to evade them, but accept with folded hands, because as Uttama Prabhu was mentioning, or Partha Prabhu was mentioning, I'm not sure whom, but they're one. So they were mentioning that we're sitting here, it means that 75% of our karmas are gone. And the rest, we're just serving Krishna with full surrender. And so the point is that us sitting here means that all the adversities that we're put through, they're not random. They're not results of any karma. Or even if it is, it's all planned by Krishna. You get just the right problems for you to learn just the right lessons, right? And sometimes you think, oh my God, I really don't know what to look for here. I don't understand what's the lesson here. But then in due time, you will realize, because you always do. Has anyone felt that their problems are exactly tailored, perfect to fit your situation and your character, your personality, right? Who can say yes to that?
Yes.
I can give you an example.
I was hoping we had time for that, but no one else, Prabhu? You don't think your problems are nice?
I'm on
But-
both sides.
Yes, but always have this firm faith that Krishna will take care of you. And everything that's coming your way, it's for your own benefit. Why? Because Krishna is seen to it. And there's Krishna's, and it's Krishna's hand behind everything that you're going through, that you're feeling, that you're seeing, everyone that you meet. None of that is coincidence. All of that is perfectly made for you. So, what are the 3 points? One sentence each. Yes.
Selfless service attracts multiply.
Yes, selfless service attracts divine reciprocation. One. Other. The first one was the Vedas address every dimension of life. That's something we learned from this pastime. Second, selfless service attracts divine reciprocation.
Spiritual advancement.
Yes, spiritual advancement comes through adversity. Yes. So with that, I'm hoping we all had something we could take from this session. If not, please forgive me. I will do better next time. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.